Data suppression to medical freedom. This is Loral Langemeier, and I'm back with Bigtree for the second part of our interview. The interview was filmed on our original podcast, Real Money Talks. So that comes out every Friday. Make sure when you're listening, if you listen through the podcast channel, click the notification button and subscribe to my channel. Every Friday, we put out a new podcast. This has been redesigned and cut into a two-part YouTube series. So you are now listening to part 2, where we're going to talk about the freedom of your health freedom starts with informed choice. And right now, as Americans, because the pharmaceutical industry, the insurance industries are so dominant in our choices, in our media, the propaganda is amazing. So listen into the following of Del and my interview, part 2. Any reverse? Let's just talk about the kids and those that are watching, because this podcast is shown all over the world. So you've asked your kids, now what do they do about it? They're seeing this for the first time. Is there reversible options for them besides having to go back to the farm and get some?
I mean, look, I am just a journalist. I have been reporting on what I found. I have interviewed experts every single week on my show, thehighwire.com. So I don't like to give medical advice. But what I will say is this, is that what we see in all of these studies is there is a bright shining light, which is there is a group of children that are not suffering from chronic disease. They have barely any. There are children that are not having neurodevelopmental disorders, almost none. ADHD, all of these things don't exist amongst children that are not receiving vaccines. I'll say this, there are lots of people that tell me the same story. I've interviewed them across this country, hundreds of them. Their first child, fully vaccinated, has severe autism. Halfway through the experience with their second child, they realized, oh my God, it's the vaccines. We're losing our second child. They're not speaking now. They're pounding their head against the wall, and they stop vaccinating. That child ends up going to college and having Asperger's, lightly on the spectrum. And then they'll tell me, but my third child and my fourth child, totally unvaccinated, valedictorian of the class, star of the football team. I mean, I've heard this story so many times. So when you look at those stories, you have to say, wherever you are, that's where you start with your understanding. No one should have guilt. We were lied by the government. The government lied to our doctors who believed that these studies were done. They were not done. And so now everyone's going to be grappling to understand, what are we going to do about it? But the first thing, like anything, once you know something, that's the day you start changing your life. And there are all sorts of protocols to, chelate, to remove the heavy metals from your body. You need to find a practitioner there. If the COVID vaccine is what you're dealing with, there's guys like Dr. Peter McCullough that has a whole protocol to try and get that spike protein out of your body and all the issues we're seeing there. We could go on and on about that COVID vaccine. We're seeing huge rises in cancer, huge rises in myocarditis and pericarditis. I think that vaccine is ultimately going to be pulled all together by the administration. But, these are just the things that happen when you rush products onto the market and don't properly safety test them.
Del, let's switch gears a little bit. I want you to also talk about the database that you're building. To that point, you can't go back and unring the bell and uncheck the vax, but there are, like you said, there's a lot of detox programs. There's a lot of naturopaths, functional medicine.
Yeah.
We met at that same, health conference, and I'm getting more and more of those kind of clients who are even going back to school in their 50s to become a functional practitioner to help other people do this. So talk about that database and how critical I think that's going to be. It's been so critical. I mean, what the database you're building, and I just want to put another industry liner on this, is this one is about insurance. Most of the stuff that's going to be in your database currently, it's hard to get insurances to cover it. The insurance companies and the pharma companies, they're all tied together for the same big reason of money and not the care of the patient. So talk about your database. I'm super excited about that coming out. That'll be such a gift.
It's going to take multiple stages. It's a huge lift that we're working on right now. But essentially, we need a healthcare system. What we have is a sick care system. Our system is only designed once you're sick. Here's the drugs you need. Here's the surgery you need. And so all it does is move us towards being sicker and sicker. How do you live a life where you actually get healthier and healthier, maintain that health, or find natural ways to not pump yourself full of drugs so that you're not on 2 drugs and 5 drugs and 8 drugs? So many people watching right now, Laurel, know exactly what I mean. It starts with one, and eventually you've got this giant pile of drugs. You're saying to yourself, what kind of life is this? We're going to build a brand new healthcare system of all all of the modalities that are out there that don't use drugs. You'll always be able to find drugs. The ER will always be there, but there are ways, whether it's chiropractic or acupuncture or homeopathy or Ayurvedic, so many different yoga, massage, all of these things that you can do to really make sure that your body is thriving. We're going to build a database that teaches, great videos and movies about how to understand all those modalities. There'll be directories on how to find those practitioners. And then ultimately, as we get memberships and people joining in, then it's going to be about collecting your data. I want people to have their own data, probably on blockchain, so that you control all of your own health information, not your government, not your doctor. You should be in control of it. And then once that database, I believe at a certain point, we're going to see that the healthiest people in the world right now are the ones that are not taking drugs, are staying away from needing drugs, are living in healthier lives. I want to invest in those people. So we're going to build an insurance system around that says we're betting on these people. I'm sure we're going to be attacked by every major provider that's out there, but I'm going to bet on the healthy people, the ones that are staying away from drugs. I think they live longer. I think they're healthier, and I think they're cheaper to insure. So that is the vision for the future we're working on right now. And that project is called Wisdom, WISDM.
I love it. Love it. And when will the first draft release?
We hope to be launching just the directory and the educational side of it sometime in January. But we're hard at work. It's a tall order, but just one of the many things that we're doing to try. I feel like I've spent the last 10 years pointing out the problem. Now we need solutions. I think it's time to really build a beautiful solution and a community where we all find each other. We know what's happening. COVID woke so many people up, but where do I go? How do I find that community that does this a different way, that would have warned me that product was untested, that they, would have seen that the FDA admitted it wasn't going to stop transmission, but the news was lying to you. All of that, we need a place we can go, and that's what this is all about.
It's exciting. So say the links one more time, those of you out listening.
Absolutely. And inconvenientstudy.com. You can find everything out there. If you want to be at the screening at the Malibu Film Festival, go to the MalibuFilmFestival.com and look for an Inconvenient Truth. Also, check out my weekly talk show, thehighwire.com. All of that is just where we keep just interviewing the greatest experts in the world and bringing information forward.
Yeah. Del, I appreciate you being here, and we're going to keep having you back to keep us apprised and our community apprised, just the latest changes, what is going on, the directory. And what will be fun is for you to be back, with our community at the end of October, because there's going to be so many of those people who will actually probably be in your directory. We're attracting so many of those folks because of just these kind of interviews and keeping the public, I'd say, educated. Last question. So Bobby doesn't get any airtime compared to any other person. Talk about, is this, I'm assuming it's all pharma related, TV related, because they're holding all the ads and you can't put him on. I lived through that in the era when I was growing into my career. The financial firms were the ones saying, you can't put her on. She's alternative. We're not. They got to stay. Even when I was Forbes Woman of the Year, didn't even matter. I still was on the back cover. I got the front cover and then my pull part because financials didn't want to support me. And I think people are just so blind to what it costs to run these media outlets, who actually controls them, et cetera. But talk about Bobby a little bit, because I'm concerned he's not getting the airtime he deserves and needs, and he's getting, bashed by people who are uneducated.
Well, look, you point out such a major problem. We believe we have news. We believe we live in a free nation. You've got to wake up to the fact that what you have is propaganda. It's the worst type of news there is. Everyone out there is they're owned. Our news right now is owned by big money, oil and gas, and number one, the pharmaceutical industry. 50 to 70% of all advertising for the television you're watching is coming from pharma. So if a news anchor even wants to tell you a story about a dangerous vaccine or a drug, they can't. They will lose their job because their boss, they work for the pharmaceutical industry. So when we ran Robert Kennedy Jr. as president, he was polling at 20% across the country. In that entire, 2.5-year run, he was only on mainstream media twice, 2 interviews of a guy that whether or not he could win was certainly going to sway the election, which is what I believe he did. did. I believe when he joined President Trump, he absolutely made sure that President Trump was going to win. I remember Dr. Phil was interviewing him, one of the few people that would, for his network, and he said to Bobby at that moment he was joining President Trump, I may be sitting across from the one vote that's going to decide the next president of the United States. I do believe that's what happened. No one saw it coming because they didn't see him on mainstream news. The same thing's happening now. This is the most successful HHS secretary we've ever had. Within, 60 days, he already removed all of the chemical dyes from our children's cereals, from their food, all the toxic chemicals that we know are causing cancer. We've been complaining about it for decades. He went in and immediately cleaned it up. He's cleaned up the baby food. He's cleaned up, so many things. He's taking away the SNAP program is no longer going to give you crappy, sugary sodas and foods. It's going to be there to make sure that you're supported with a healthy diet. That's a huge change. He's looking at fluoride in water. There's just so many things. They're not going to fund vaccines like mRNA technology that has proven to be more dangerous than helpful. So we're just seeing a whole bunch of really impressive things taking place. He just brought forward that Tylenol. It's been known for years. I've reported for years. Tylenol does contribute to the issue of autism. If you're taking Tylenol while you're pregnant, everyone was afraid of Bayer. They're afraid of the Tylenol and all the companies making it, not Robert Kennedy Jr. So in the end, Loral, he's not designed to care whether or not he's getting media. I'm telling you, that man is a warrior. He's a hero. I worked with him for 3 years. He's one of the most brilliant, compassionate, amazing human beings you'll ever meet. And he is really in there fighting for the American people to clean up our food supply, to clean up our water, to clean up our drugs. They just dropped, look at the prescription drug deal they just made. Everyone's talked about it. Every Democrat, and I was a Democrat. I grew up as a Democrat. We got to lower drug costs. Finally, we get favored nation because Robert Kennedy Jr. is there doing something about it. So he just, every week, he's rocking it out. You might have to go look at social media to find it out, but it's happening. And so that's what I care about. Whether or not we get the news, it would be great. It'd be great if people were waking up, but real change is happening. And that's what I'm so happy to have been a part of.
Absolutely. And thank you for all of your dedication and commitment. We'll see if I can get there to Malibu, but if not, I will definitely be watching and be spreading the word on all social media channels throughout the week. And
I can't wait to be with you on October 28th. It's going to be a major event. So much, Loral, like so many. I've called you when things were really getting scary, when there was attacks coming from really big players, sometimes financial threats. You've been just a rock. Your guidance has been incredible. And I just want to thank you just being on my team because it's really made a difference.
Thank you, Del. And those of you watching, if you have any questions, any requests, go to askloral.com, ASKLORAL. We'll be putting the links for the documentary for your ongoing just conversation, because it's right. I shouldn't say it's difficult to find, but it's all on social media. So we'll be out there watching and listening. Thanks for being on today. Appreciate you. Laura. And the rest of you will be back next Friday. We are airing this the Friday before the documentary comes out, right? So cannot wait. Cannot wait to see it myself. So if you have any questions about this interview, in the show notes will be the link for you to have a free viewing of the documentary and inconvenience study. Make sure you pass it on to many, many other people. Again, if you have any questions, go to askloral.com, ASKLORAL, ask a question, make a request. While you're here, before you leave this channel, make sure you're subscribing, click that notification button, be here 5 days a week. Every topic that we talk about has something to do with money, has to do with how we make it, how we keep it, how we invest it, and how all the other impacts, including health, which is our number one takedown of wealth, is unplanned health incidents. And this vaccine study is fabulous. So stay tuned for more. We're here 5 days a week. And if you have any questions, go to askloral.com. Talk to you tomorrow.